and thank you for, it's recording, okay. Yes, again, thank you for giving me opportunity to present here. And this is we're starting our fundraising round, and this is actually my first presentation today. I was hoping I'll have a bit more practices, but I feel like it's a good room to practice with, so. Okay, so my name is Valentina Lukinvic, and I'm one of the scientific co-founders of NuvoBio. And a bit background about myself. So 3 years of my PhD I have spent in the dark room, using the glove box, working under red light, working in deep biophysics, and studying the electron spins of biological reactions. And although important, I wanted to move a bit from the fundamental science and try to make more significant impact to the patient outcomes through my research. And what got me passionate about cancer research is my industrial placement in the Cancer Research UK Centre in Manchester, where I worked in the drug discovery lab that was closely associated to the hospital, and we were visiting patients regularly. So working there and later in my postdoc, I got to know about the sea of potential targets that we could treat to help fight cancers and different diseases. So my drive to move to Canada was actually to work on finding drugs for these disease-related targets. And a little over 4 years later, here I am. I'm being an entrepreneur, and I'm working together with my team and advisors and establishing a company that is helping revolutionize discovery and development of peptide therapeutics. So at NuvoBio, we have developed a differentiated AI platform for discovery of new drugs. And specifically, we are focusing on development of new peptide drugs, with Ozempic or insulin being some of examples of peptides that you might be familiar with. And using this platform, we have started to discover a number of drugs for different diseases. For example, cancer, diseases of nervous system, and against fungal infections, for example, as well. So we are still at early stage, and we are several years from treating patients with these drugs. But we are slowly moving forward. Now we have fantastic industry-focused lab space within the incubator with Capital by Ventures. And we have support across various areas, from drug design to the business development. And now we are seeking seed financing to further advance our programs for the next 2 years. But let me show you in further details who NuvoBio is. So AI has promised to revolutionize everything. It will drive our cars, it will manage our money, it will help us learn new languages, and it's hard to go a day now without some mention of AI. And one of the most hopeful promises is that it will help us bring more therapies to patients. So making new therapies and drugs is wildly time-consuming. So first you need to choose the target. Then you need to create a molecule that will modify the function of that target to stop the disease. And then we need to ensure that this molecule won't cause any side effects, but will also be effective in humans. And so far, AI tools alone have not been too helpful to enhance drug discovery, but we believe that our technology is able to change that and help design of new peptide-based drugs. The problem and challenges in current AI-driven development of new peptide therapeutics is the heavy reliance on the structure of the target protein. And the problem is that we have only 10% of experimentally validated structure, meaning that so many diseases cannot be targeted. And another limitation in this approach is that these targets are looked at being almost in a vacuum as isolated units without considering their biological relevance, which then results with generating fewer relevant hits. NuvoBio is changing the way of how we use and train our AI for peptide drug discovery. We have built an algorithm that is actually completely ignoring the structure, and we are starting from protein sequence, which enables us to interrogate 100% of the human proteome. And as a result of using millions of interaction data points, we are using meaningful biological information to generate new drugs, and therefore generate highly specific and biologically relevant hits. And we are able to do so by leveraging our proprietary platform called Darwin AI. Darwin AI gives high probability of generating successful preclinical programs. Darwin AI is a machine learning algorithm for new therapeutic peptide design that generates better hits faster and at lower cost compared to competition. With integrating our platform into the drug discovery pipeline, you generate more drugs that are highly specific for your target of interest, drugs that are safer for preclinical and clinical studies, and are faster and cheaper to create. But let's look in further details. How is NuvoBio different and what puts us ahead? So compared to the very few alternative approaches that rely on the sequence of our protein target, we are already assessing way more data points where we create our own peptide universe for drug discovery. So our competitors start from much smaller sequence space and they use a ton of computational power. And because of this large number of data points, we are also able to solve a major challenge in developing new drugs, to have drugs with improved efficacy while reducing side effects. This is exactly what Darwin AI does, and this is where we are fundamentally different. So our algorithm, while it's designing new drugs, it has the ability to predict potentially new drug-protein interactions, and therefore it's actively reducing the interaction with the proteins that we don't want it to interact with, which then gives us indication on the safety for further preclinical and clinical studies. And because we don't require use of supercomputing, our approach is cost and time efficient. And in addition to that, we are also to scale up our drug discovery approach, where we can simultaneously work on discovery of programs in-house and work with our customers and partners on their external projects. Our approach can be validated within 1 week in the wet lab and shows up to 80% success rate. And all of this is making Darwin AI as the most accurate peptide predictor. But let me walk you quickly through I know it was lots of science, but let me walk you quickly through the process of how our drug discovery process in-house works. So for this, I will use a target called SMIT3. So SMIT3 is a protein involved in development of over 15 different cancer types, and it is a major player in promoting chemotherapy drug resistance. So one of the examples of its function is its role in small cell lung carcinoma development, which is the deadliest form of lung cancer, and it often becomes resistant for chemotherapy that is leaving no alternative treatment options for patients. So there is no cure. So these findings suggest that SMIT3 inhibitors have market potential both as a standalone therapy as part of the combination therapy as well. And industry leaders already recognize potential in targeting this protein, but without any major success using small molecules in preclinical trials. In under 11 hours, our genetic algorithm pinpointed highly specific peptide binders targeting SMIT3. So Darwin's trade secret and winning formula lies in its fitness function, where we found a way to maximize the interaction with our target, SMIT3, and minimizing the interaction with the other proteins. And once our candidates are identified computationally in silico, we move to the wet lab validation. And wet lab validation showed 87% accuracy of our computational prediction. And here you can see how our inhibitor demonstrates similar efficacy to the small molecules developed by market leaders. We progressed with three inhibitors characterization in the mammalian cell culture, where we show that our inhibitors are able to reduce the function of SMIT3 protein in lung cancer cell lines. And our compounds exhibit nanomolar potency, which means that they are well suited for further in vivo studies. With Darwin AI being at the foundation of our drug discovery, NuvoBio is a platform AI company with an entire pipeline and partnering strategy around it. So using advanced AI-driven predictions, we are ensuring that we focus our resources on the most promising candidates. We have identified nanomolar potency inhibitors in record time and advanced our candidates to in vivo studies within months. And our approach isn't limited to one disease area. By being able to assess the entire human proteome, we are able to work on multiple indications efficiently. And our strategy is to keep our oncology program in-house and develop them as far as possible. Whereas for the other programs, we are looking to partner them with pharmaceutical companies sooner. But we are not stopping there. A platform extension is in the works to expand therapeutic design, stability, and oral availability of our molecules. So at NuvoBio, we are redefining drug discovery with bold science, with strategic collaboration, and cutting-edge technology. But with having this diverse pipeline and platform as a foundation of our discovery, we are ensuring that we have strong IP strategy where we are patenting our peptides and keeping our platform as a trade secret. And our approach to drug discovery is affordable, it's user-friendly, and sometimes the only solution, because currently we are the only ones who can query the entire proteome. With our first mover advantage, we are ensuring to keep that position, and we are continuously adding the extension to our platform, and that development is driven by our customers' needs. And we have strong and experienced team of business leaders to scale up the company and scientific talent to drive the innovation. And through building our brand and strategic alliances, we aim to become a lead in AI peptide discovery. We are positioned between two growing markets, peptide therapeutics and AI in drug discovery, and we are able to address at least 15% of the market, considering the AI-driven peptide discovery market has only several players at the moment. Our adjacent market opportunities are coming from licensing opportunities on our asset, and one of the examples was SMITRI inhibitor that I showed you before in the small cell lung carcinoma market. Since initiation of the idea and developing the algorithm, we have validated it in our lab and externally. We have sold the platform services without extensive marketing and developed several lead candidates in-house. And now we are in biotech incubators. We have several partnerships signed, and we have retaining customers. And with the upcoming financing, we are looking to further advance our lead candidates and drug delivery with the aim to advance towards clinical trials in 2028. We are aiming to expand on our branding strategy and sales and on partnerships and licensing opportunities through developing our programs in-house. The value of our platform has already been demonstrated externally through working with our partners and clients, and we are already revenue generating. And different ways to work with NuvoBio are through partnering programs that we are working on in-house, through working on the target from our partners, as well as using our platform for fee-for-service. I hope that you can recognize that NuvoBio, we are not just advancing science, but we are building sustainable, growth-ready biotech business. And with 71% innovation in pharma coming from external sources, we strongly believe that we have position in the market and will be able to succeed by having several revenue streams in the future. And here you can see the breakdown of our hybrid business model, meaning that the company growth occurs from two different paths. So in short term, our main revenue source will be platform service sales, whereas in the longer term, our biggest deals will come from the licensing and milestones agreements or our development programs in-house. In fact, let me show you where we are going and some examples from the multi-million-dollar business transaction around either drug discovery platforms or drugs at different stages of development. So with our seed round, we aim to expand on the platform service and optimize on our drug delivery programs and further work on our oncology assets focused on in vivo preclinical safety and toxicology and efficacy. And that will enable our future IND-enabling studies that will help us complete the preclinical data package required by FDA to initiate clinical studies on some of our projects. Thanks to significant non-dilutive funding, we were able to validate our technology, establish our pipeline, and have retaining customers for using our platform AI services. And currently, with the upcoming financing, we are looking into expanding on our sales and partnerships, on our R&D strategy, which will strengthen our IP portfolio. And of course, we would like to hire new talent that will help us achieve these two goals. We are also hoping to leverage this financing through matching funding opportunities, for example, through OCI and CQDM. With the next financing round, we are looking to expand on our preclinical projects with aim to work through licensing and milestones agreements.
Valentina, just to let you know, you've got 1 more minute.
Okay, yeah, this is my last slide. Our operations team has the strong background to make Darwin AI as the lead peptide discovery platform. And by combining our team expertise in scaling businesses with the intellectual creativity of our scientific talent, and especially having support from the fractional executive leadership from Capital Bioventures, we believe that we have skills and knowledge necessary to establish NuvoBio as a leading force in peptide drug development. So with your investment, we can accelerate this revolutionary technology and pipeline to the next inflection point. And I'm calling you to join us and be part of this movement on changing the way on how we use AI, because our product should work for everyone in the drug discovery field. We can execute, we know the space, we have knowledge, and we have the team. And thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Wow. Okay. All right. So we have about 10 minutes for Q&A from our investors. And I will just open it up to whoever wants to come off mute or raise your hand. Do you have questions for Valentina? Any things you want clarified from the presentation?
Sure, I'll kickstart. Thank you, Valentina. That oh my gosh, you are incredible, and you are talking to two different areas which I have very little depth in. So I'm just an electronics person, and you are really this is very cool. I'd love to understand more. I don't understand, to start with, what platform sales means. Can you just describe that to me a little bit more? That's your main revenue right now. And when you're describing it, you describe the customers that I think you're currently selling to right now, because you have revenue.
Yeah.
Mm.
Sorry. Okay. Yeah. So I can maybe give you an example how it works.
Sure.
So our customer comes to us and asks us, okay, we are working on drug discovery for these targets. So before they tell us the targets, we usually sign the NDA. So they give us, I'm going to use example SME3. So they give us, okay, the SME3 is the protein that I want to develop drug for.
Mm-hmm.
What we do, we put the sequence of the protein, which is available. There is open data on that. It's not a secret to anyone. So we put this protein sequence into our algorithm. We run the algorithm. Algorithm gives us a list of peptides, potential drugs. So this list can be as long as we want or as short as we want. What we normally do, we select predicted peptides that will highly interact with the protein, then maybe predicted that will so interact, and those that will not interact. So we give our customers information, all of those, and we say, okay, how many do you want? Let's say 100 of those will interact, 100 won't, 100 maybe.
Okay.
So then what we do, we print those peptides, those molecules, on a piece of paper and send that piece of paper to our customers. Then customers, before we send that, we send them an invoice, then they pay for our service, and that's where it stops. Or if one of the customers, they wanted to continue working with us in the next step, when from 100, they found, okay, these 5 is really good. And then we work with them later and we can make them in the molecule, and then they continue with their own assays. I don't know if that helps. So
yeah, that's helping. So that interactive model, they find 5, and what do you, and then you help them again? How do you help?
Yeah, so that's the next step, where it's not on the piece of paper anymore, but we are synthesizing these molecules in the lab, right? And then then we send it to them as a solution, and then they use it in their assays, depending on what the target is.
And just for clarification, so that's so that the customer can discover a drug that's never been used before to attack that protein? Is that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So it's brand new drug discovery.
Yeah.
And
example,
basically you accelerate that process of the drug discovery through your AI platform.
Yeah, exactly. So for example, our first customer, they are, it was just by chance, someone who I met virtually before, but they're working on the really difficult target that is involved in muscular dystrophy and cancer development as well. There is pharma doesn't have interest, because it's a really challenge they tried before, but there was no success, and they just ditched it. 2 months they worked on that, it didn't work, let's move on to something else, because there's so many targets. But this person is very passionate over that, and he was just, oh, can you try this? And we did that for them. So for them, that's the only solution, right? Because sometimes pharma makes it available for you to test drugs that they already developed, or you can purchase it through different companies, but not always. And he didn't have any option to see and characterize this target and to see if it's really value investigating or not. So for him, that was really the only option.
And who was he?
It's a researcher in institute in Paris.
Okay.
At the so it's part of the INSERM, but he's working at the University in Paris and the epigenetic and cell signaling group.
Okay, and then one last question, I'll hand off to Jennifer and Marissa. But so that invoice that you described earlier that gave you the 100, you gave 100 examples. So what was that invoice for? For how many thousand?
Oh, this was just for the computational part and this piece of paper that we sent to him with the peptides. Yeah.
Yeah. So is it? I just don't know how much you would charge for something like that.
How much? So our first customer, that was end of 2020. So the first customer, we charged $1,500 because we didn't know. And for us, it's like computational time, it's nothing. We are running our software just on a PC, and synthesis cost us around $200. And now we actually have first customer for 2025 now. Now we are charging 20,000. So
20,000. Okay. Okay. I hope you weren't going to say 1,500 for that. It sounds fantastic. But yes. Okay. Thank you, Jennifer.
Yeah. Now when we have retaining customers, we are trying to.
Yeah. Good. Okay.
Thank you.
Jennifer?
Yeah, I guess I want to understand your platform versus your drug discovery side of your business. So if there's certain peptides that you plan to take to viable therapeutic drugs, are you looking, like when someone comes to you to use your platform, are you looking at whether they're in an area that you're not interested in? Like, how do you keep those two separate so that you can work with other drug companies and still develop your own drugs without winding up in conflict between those?
Yes, so far, luckily, we didn't have any conflicts because we do have, for example, some of our oncology assets that I didn't show today, but we on purpose try to develop inhibitors for example, Novartis was working on a few targets that are available, and you can look into their development plan. So we were trying to develop the drug that Novartis might be interested in future, right? So our licensing and milestones deals maybe go more smoothly, but our separate programs is just something that we are interested in, that maybe has an interest in pharma, but not so much. But for the customers, yeah, we are not, for example, this person in Paris, like we are really not working on that drug, and we are ensuring that we are staying away from that, right? So far, we didn't have any conflicts, but if we get bigger, we'll see. We'll see about that.
Okay. And as you develop your own drugs, your intent would be to take certain drugs through the clinical trial process, and you will have labs set up to do that clinical trial process while you're still doing the platform sales?
So our ideal situation at the moment we see it would be to bring it maybe to the phase 1 and try to license it there, just because it gets very costly. And for us, it would be maybe more reasonable to bring it there and then sell it off to someone else to bring it through the clinical trials, because it can be $100 million, right? And
yeah,
that's big, big round. So yeah, we are hoping to bring assets to the phase 1 maybe, and then outline system. And that's for the oncology, just because we see the biggest deals in the oncology space at that stage. And for the other asset, for example, for the our antifungal assets, we are looking to partner them sooner, because we can develop them in our lab, and they're more like, I don't want to say, we are not treating human, right? We are treating the fungus. So it's more straightforward. And we are open to partner those sooner, just because we are not microbiologists at the end of the day. And so, yeah, oncology programs in-house, but the others, we are open to partner earlier.
Okay. And I just have a team question. Michael Copeland's your CEO. How active is he in the company?
He's active. He's a visionary. We have monthly meetings with him, so he's kind of driving. Oh, should we work in the oncology? Where is the market? For example, we were focused for a long time on the antifungal one, and he was like, no, that's not the biggest market. It's very interesting. It's going to help. There is large patient population in Africa, And he's like, okay, let's try to find non-dilutive sources to bring this to patients, but let's maybe focus on the oncology where our biggest return on investment would be, right? So he's not involved like in daily operations, how we run the experiments in the lab. That's what me and Kyle are for. But bigger picture, he's there, yeah. And we have regular meetings with him and Jim as well, especially on the business side.
Okay, and you're a co-founder, you're on the cap table?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks. Marissa.
My question got answered from Julia's question, but Valentina, maybe you could expand a little more about your pricing strategy for your two types of clients, right? There's the clients who use your platform, and then there's the clients who might potentially buy your drug. Is there, you mentioned some numbers, but is there a pricing strategy there?
So for the platform, so we are trying to see what our competitors in traditional peptide discovery field are doing. So not AI, but the wet lab approaches, right? And they are ranging from like $50,000 to $250,000. So we are trying to have our approach affordable, right? So we attract more customers, but at the same time, we are increasing the value because we see that people are coming to us for the service. So we are hoping that we are going to retain the customers, even if the price goes up. And for the drug development, that is going to depend on how far our drug is. Because if we, for example, now we are talking with bigger pharma, they are telling us, this is very exciting and interesting, but come to us when you have your molecule proven in mice, right? Which is our next step. And once we have that, the price will go up, right? So I don't have exact number now, but the deals that we are seeing, they're in hundreds of millions of dollars.
Okay, and is there a potential for there almost to be two exit strategies here, one with the platform and one with the potential drugs, or is that sort of a package deal in the end? Whoever would, a merger or an acquisition, they would buy the whole thing, or?
Yeah, I mean, there is a potential, like, I'm not sure. That's something I would have to think about, I guess. I'm not sure if we would be selling. So what the mergers that we are seeing, normally it's like they buy a drug and then the rest of the pipeline. And this is a bit unique situation where we have a platform as well. And I'm not sure how clean it would be to separate the two in the coming years, but that's a good thing to think about. Thank you.
Makes sense. Thanks.
Thanks, Marissa. Deb, do you have a question?
Yes,
Deborah?
sorry about that. Yes, I was just floating through. Okay, so correct me if I'm not catching something that you did discuss. How important is the pre-clarification, and I'm not sure if this is the client or this is you, the pre-clarification or the development in advance of the expected interactions, the peptides that will or won't the most interacted with, or the ones that you want to diminish the interaction with? How important is that work in advance of, or is that part of that process that you're able to do as long as they've identified the target, what they're looking to achieve down the road?
Yeah, actually, this is one of the advantages that we overlooked when I started to speak with other peoples. And it's something that the investors pointed out to me that they didn't see anyone else doing that. And we were just, oh, this is what we do. And I would say it's really important because we are the only ones who can, maybe I have actually slide example on that. Like, so here, for example, can you see my slide on with three curves? So we are the only ones who are actually doing this. So basically, let's say this is my SMID3 protein in 3, and I know this gray dot is the protein, I'm going to say SMID1, right? So when we progress with our drug into the in vivo studies, we are going to observe what is happening with SMID1 And just by having that information, we know what we need to pay attention to in the later studies, right? Whereas if you are just working with 3 and you don't know what is happening with the rest of the proteins in the organism, you don't know what you should pay attention to, right? And you need to follow different biomarkers and observe what's happening, whereas this it's more directed where the safety might be issue.
So how proprietary is that component? And how, even if you have first mover advantage, do you have an expectation that with computational AI and advancements that there's something that's specifically proprietary that you're able to protect?
So for the moment, we are keeping the platform as a trade secret, right? So and
Right.
yeah, and so the equation, the fitness function that is doing this is being kept as a trade secret, right?
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I was looking for my little hand, but I can't find my hand.
And to react.
Yeah. So mine is more maybe a comment or a reflection on, kind of as a marketing person, when I look at your kind of high level value statement and high level value proposition, I can see that speaks to your target customer. I'm wondering when you're speaking to investors who may not have the scientific background, whether you want to up level it a little bit. And for example, on this slide where you talk about safer drug design, I'm wondering if there's kind of on their very first title slide, for example, whether there's something higher level that you could immediately appeal to potential investors with that don't have the same background. I looked at, I said proteome. I'm like, I don't know what that is. So I'm wondering if there's something you could dumb it down or level it up a little bit that just kind of says, this is about AI drug discovery or faster, safer drug discovery or something, accelerating drug, just something that it kind of speaks to more of a lay person's approach, and then get into more of the scientific stuff because, I was intimidated on the first slide where I'm like, oh, geez, I don't know if I understand this stuff right away. And I think for your customers, of course, they get it. But I'm just wondering if when you're going to investors, you might need to simplify it a little bit in terms of what's happening in the market. And, I liked you talked about AI. AI hasn't reached its promise, its delivery of drugs, what's happening there. And that's really what you're offering, right? You're coming back and saying, no, we have now the solution for using AI to get that faster drug discovery, safer and enabling. And maybe it's about, if you're talking to investors, maybe it's about enabling these drug companies to move more quickly or something like that.
Yeah, thank you for that. This was actually, it changed so many times.
Yeah.
Because it was way longer, and I can appreciate that that it's a challenge.
Valentina,
yeah, thinking about that.
You said something earlier, a phrase that I wrote it down, the peptide, like an accelerated peptide universe for drug discovery, because you're trying to cover a bunch of ground, and then we can see it, we can visualize something larger, and then you can target each of those areas. I think you have it in there. You just haven't put it maybe on the first page. She's so right about that.
This is a nice transition into the feedback part of this presentation.
Okay, sorry about that.
No, perfect, Leah. Thanks for kicking that up. Heather, so we're going to spend 5 or 10 minutes just on some, top of mind feedback, and then we'll have a separate, more detailed session with just the investors. But does anybody else want to weigh in with, some other comments that came to mind?
I think Leah's captured my thoughts well, and in terms of the overall, there is a fair bit of information on these slides as well too, Valentina, and really fascinated by everything. But you've got to speak to a broader audience of investors, many of which don't have the knowledge. Actually, don't have a 1/100th of the knowledge that you have in this area. And so, sorry, Deb.
It's absolutely evident that you know what you're talking about. So that's not at all the issue. It's the conveying. Slow down if you can. Deliberate wording, pacing, because I think you're the kind of person, much like I am, where the more excited, the more interested, the more passionate, the more excited, the faster. And with a topic that's, you know, difficult to begin with, or for people that aren't aware, it's going to help a lot. And then I noticed there were some slides that were cut off, and it might be my view, it may not be yours, but there were a few like Fit 5 and oh no, actually slide 5, I was going to refer to the title. 18 and 20 are cut off. Some of them are just a little bit, and it might just be the rush of getting this one done for us, or it could be
You know, it was the presentation screen. It was for some reason
not expanded.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I shouldn't be reading all that stuff. I should be listening intently, but you know, people they do zoom down.
No, that's a good point. Thank you.
Yeah.
I have one maybe that we talked about before, Valentina, but this group would be really good in offering sort of advice on that a little bit, you know, to be ready to talk about the team and the cap table, how it's structured. You've got a lot of super knowledgeable people on that team and what their roles are and how the cap table reflects that. I don't know if anybody had any feedback about that.
I failed to ask the question, how much does Copeland own of the company? I'm dying to know.
How much does Copeland own? Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So the it's a complicated story that I spoke with Marissa and Katie before. So the NuvoBio was incorporated in 2016 originally, and then they worked with Michael and Jim, right? And they worked with Kyle in 2017. So Kyle won a prize for peptide discovery. And that's how Michael and Jim learned about him. So they worked with different academics, not only with Kyle at the time. But so they started to work with Kyle in 2017. And then fast forward to 2022. I took part in Lab to Market program with NSERC, where I was doing the market research around Darwin AI. Basically, it wasn't called like that then, but so I was doing the market research just to see if there is commercial potential of this platform, and if there is place for us in the market, right? And at the end of my research, I had to submit a report as the end of my my program, and that report Kyle shared with Michael and Jim, who got interested, and this is where NuvoBio got restructured, and now the shares between of the new NuvoBio are between Zim, that is owned by Michael and Jim, and that's 60% of the company, and 40% belongs to the scientific co-founders, being myself, Kyle, and our computer engineers, Francois, and Jim, his other supervisor. So 60 and 40 between the business and science team. So that happened, like, I think we signed the agreement, I think it was 2023, I don't remember now.
Okay, okay, thank you, thank you. Okay,
And
sorry.
you're working with Capital Bio Ventures as well. What can you tell us a little bit about the nature of that partnership?
So it's actually been amazing. We moved to the lab space in the office. I think it was just before I came back in September. And so we are working very close. I'm working very closely, I should say, with Julia and Larissa. They're helping a lot with the business development. And for example, they were at the last week, they were at the JPM, the biggest healthcare meeting in San Francisco, and they were presenting NuvoBio. So I was working on slide deck with them and helping them prepare for the pitches there.
So they represented you when they were in California last week.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I look forward to hear about the feedback. We are working a lot with Maura on the IP strategy and building the data room for the fundraising. And I'm presenting at the Obio Investment Summit in 2 weeks. So they brought in a consultant to help me build a slide deck. So yeah, there is like lots of different aspects, just like how to reach to investors and how to frame the story. But I can appreciate all of these people are experts in the life science field, and I need some feedback for the broad audience, right?
Yeah. So can I just So it might be all stuff that you're capable of doing, but the platform sales and the drug discovery and the getting things to phase 1 of clinical trials and then finding buyers for them sounds like a lot.
Yeah.
And it sounds very
All over the place.
yeah. So if you really are able to do all of those things, I think presenting it, the way it was presented here, it just feels like you're doing way too much. And so if you don't think you're doing way too much, I think you need to think about how you're presenting this and how you're showing how you're managing those platform services while you're doing drug discovery of your own, and how you're then going to take that to clinical, at least phase 1. It's hard to get your drugs acquired at any reasonable price if they haven't gone through any phases of the clinical trial process. So how you're going to do that, how you layer that in, how you see your fundraising to be able to fund that, and how you see your team growing to be able to do that. Because otherwise it just sounds like you're all over the map, and what exactly am I investing in?
It's kind of like a product roadmap, is a good description as well too, that you've got those phases of your product development, although you have multiple
Yeah.
products, so
We had lots of these discussions when we first started, because Jim was telling us we need to decide what do we want to be. And we were like, okay, let's proceed with the drug development that is more costly, but it's bigger return at the end of the day, right? But then we had a pitch event, for example. We went to Toronto, and then people saw our pitch, and then people asked to use our service. So like, okay, what do we do now? Like, we can. So for the moment, we were very efficient, but we have few customers, right? And it doesn't take us that much time to do that part. But I can appreciate with scaling up, we plan to hire more people, but yeah, I can appreciate the risk. But there are companies that are successful with a hybrid business model. Like, so one of the big ones is in silico medicine. They are developing the small molecule drugs using the AI approaches as well. And they have been successful for the last, I think they're running 5 years now with 2 models. So
yeah, I just think you need to describe how you're going to do that a bit more, and how you're going to scale the company to do that. And I also think you need to address how you wind up not being in competition with your customers of the platform.
okay.
And how you're going to
I would
keep
love
that.
to see a visual. Like I think I was thinking the same thing, Jennifer. I want to see the visual for the pass. I know I always ask for a graphic, so that's not unique to this discussion. Valentina, sorry, I always want to see a data visualization, but it's because I was uncertain whether you were developing a drug independently, whether you were doing custom work, whether you were doing both. And I think when you talk about the platform, it's been developed, the energy and the time and money has gone into some component of that. That's not as much time, but maybe you could reflect resourcing, the resourcing and the time that's required for each of those components so that you can better understand how you scale.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Great. Lots of great. Any last notes before we say goodbye to Valentina? No?
I can jump in with a piece of feedback as well. It was a really amazing presentation, Valentina, and echo what everyone said, that it's very clear that you know what you're talking about. One piece of feedback I had was maybe adding a traction slide. So at the beginning, like maybe slide 4 or 5, just a quick summary of all the things you've done so far to make sure that your business is amazing. So I feel like you mentioned, we already have revenue, so you could have a bullet point on this much revenue. If you've already had conversations with some of the drug companies, what are like the initial feedback they're giving you? Like, already had 2 interested companies for purchasing the drugs, or like some of the things you mentioned, even going through some of the programs. I feel like it was kind of like the bio accelerator program you went through. Some of it was kind of tied in through different parts of the presentation, but it's always nice to have like a summary slide of these are all the things we've already done to prove our business is working and that we have traction on, and investors like to see that as like a quick summary. So I think that could be a good thing to add too.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Nadia. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, could I add one more thing?
Yeah.
Just from a marketing perspective, it's kind of some of that upfront stuff. So I like, again, how you had the problem of, AI hasn't worked so far. I think it would be cool just to show kind of where the biggest potential is. You had your intersection of the two markets, but I think there's something even more before that, which talks about AI discovery hasn't happened fast enough. What is the undiscovered world of these proteins that haven't been tackled yet? What's the potential for, is it the drugs that have already been done are good and they'll keep going, and then there's this massive new potential, or is there always an improvement on the drugs? I'm kind of trying to get my head around how big this universe is from a number of drugs that can be developed. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I have something similar in one of the slides that I removed, but it's just the fact that we have a different approach, right? That we are sequenced and not the structure. That's where the biggest potential is coming from.
Yeah. To rediscover, to recreate drugs for existing problems, or all new, things we haven't even tackled yet.
Yeah, and it's both. Basically, we did both, where we actually try to re-identify peptides that are already on the market, and we see that we are
Make them better.
Yeah, exactly.
So part of your value proposition is this, there's all this new stuff that needs to be developed, but also the improvement of things that have already gone by, and ultimately to make us all healthier and live longer and, tackle cancer and all those things, right? All part of up-leveling that value proposition.
Yeah. Thank you.
Right. Thanks, Leah. All right. Thanks so much, Valentina. We're going to let you go now. Thanks for the great presentation. Really appreciate it. And if everybody else can hang on for a few minutes, that would be great.
Thank you so much again for your time, and appreciate you listening.
All right.
Monday
Nice
morning.
meeting you. Yeah.
Take care.
Take care.
Yeah, bye.
Bye. Okay, I'm just going to stop the recording.